So a great way to organize and analyze your data would be to put everything on Google Sheets. It's taken me several years to get familiar with Google Sheets, but once I've used it a couple of times, it's a really great tool to use. So what I did is here is these first 10 rows represent my data that my group, my partner and I did. We did 3% hydrogen peroxide, and then we traded data, and so we borrowed data from another group. So we have 20 trials altogether of the 3%, and I just typed them in no particular order. It was the same as what was on my lab sheet. And then I did the same for the 1.5%. As you can see, we have all the data. So over here, to get all the necessary components to make a Box and Whiskers plot, I have actually created the title. So I have a minimum value, quartile 1, median, quartile 3, maximum. I believe on the lab it asks for a range, and in that case you subtract the two. I think it asks for a quartile range, and so you would subtract quartile 3 and quartile 1 from quartile 3. But here is how you're going to ask the computer to get that data for you. So I've already done data set number 3, and later in this video you'll see how I graph that by hand. And then let's take a look at data set for the 1.5% hydrogen peroxide. So here I am looking for the minimum. So I'm going to highlight the box where I want the number to appear, and I'm going to hit the equal sign on my computer, and that's going to tell the Google Sheets program that I'm about to put a function in there. The cool thing is I just have to start to type in minimum, and you can see a bunch of options pop up, but that first one is the minimum value in a numeric data set. So I click on that, and then you can see a parentheses appear. So it's basically saying, tell me the data you want me to look at. So I'm going to come over here and highlight all of the data, just that data. And when I'm done, I'm going to hit the end parentheses and I'm going to hit return. And you can see it found the minimum value for me. I didn't have to do anything. Skip over this other data and let's go to the maximum value. Same thing, you're going to hit the equal sign and start to type in the word maximum, and you can see maximum value shows up. So I'm going to select that. It has a parenthesis, so it's waiting for us to tell us what data to use. So I'm going to highlight all of the data. I'm going to close the parentheses and hit enter, and that will tell me the maximum value. The median is very similar. So you hit equal and you start to type in the name of the function, median. You can see it pops up. So I'm going to click on that, and same thing. I'm going to highlight all of the data in that column, close the parentheses, hit enter, and it'll tell me the median value. Quartile 1 and 3 are a little bit different, not too bad. You're going to start with your equal sign, so getting the program ready to know that a function is coming. I'm going to start to type in quartile, and you can see it pops up. And so I'm going to select my data. Now, I'm not going to close the parentheses. Instead, I'm going to hit comma, and I'm going to tell it I want the first quartile median, which is basically what that is. So I'm going to hit the number 1, and then I'm going to close the parentheses, and it will calculate the first quartile median. Do the same thing over here, but instead of clicking 1, you would click 3. So equals, start to type in quartile, it pops up for you. You select all of the data, comma 3 for the third quartile, close your parentheses, and there you have your data. So a lot easier than you trying to do it by hand, writing these all out in order from smallest to largest. It makes a big difference if you can utilize the Google Sheets. Then, like I said, in the next segment of the video, I'm going to show you just here with the 3% how to actually graph that on the graph paper. And then that's what you and your partner are going to turn in. You're going to have all 3 data sets. So obviously I still have a little more work to do myself for the 0.75% hydrogen peroxide. All right, so earlier in the video, you saw how I used Google Sheets to determine the necessary values that I need in order to make my box plot. And then I'm going to show you how to make a box plot by hand on this. So this is kind of like a graph. However, we're not really going to use the y-axis. We're really just going to use our values here on the x-axis. So all of these values, I went ahead and already numbered them. Starting at 0, I just skipped a line. The scale might not work for your data, so it does help to kind of count how many blocks you have first, make sure you can get your minimum and your maximum value for all of your data sets on here first before you decide how to use it. But I'm going to go ahead and write seconds down here as a unit. So in my first data set, I had found that the minimum, I'll go ahead and start with the median. The median value was 11.29. So I'm going to find 11. Here's 12. This would be 11.5. I'm going to leave a little space. So 11.29 is going to be about in here. And so I'm just going to go up 3 boxes. It does not matter what size boxes you have. My quartile 1 value was 10.48. So here's my 10. There's the 10.48. It's going to be real close, obviously, to that line. And so that's going to be where my first box is. That's the quartile 1. I could even put a Q1 there to help me. And in fact, that median value, I might make a little bit bigger than that box to kind of remember. My quartile 3 value was 13.48, so again, really close to that line. So I'm going to draw that and finish the box. So this part of the box, you would want to color code. So I just picked a color. I'm going to go ahead and shade that in. And then this is the box part of it, but we need to add the whiskers. The whiskers are going to represent your maximum and your minimum value of the entire data set. So sorry, this is maybe a little sloppy, but you can see my box there. So then I also need, I'm going to go ahead and put quartile 3 up there. And then my minimum value would be a 7.04. So if I come down here, this is where my 7 is. Obviously 0.04 is pretty much on that line. So I'm going to draw a vertical line and then horizontally connect it to the box. So this is the whisker part that shows you how far of a distance there is in that first quartile to the median. And then same thing with the maximum value. My maximum value is 20.1, so again, really close to the 20. So I'm going to draw a line there and then connect it with my box. I'm going to go ahead and go over those in red. Doesn't have to be completely perfectly neat, but at least visible. So there I have my box and whisker plot. And then I'm going to make a legend over here where my red color is representing, mine was, sorry, the 3% hydrogen peroxide. And then I'm going to go ahead and use data, and so you would make another color box plot, and that might represent your 1.5% hydrogen peroxide, and then you should have a third color. And when you draw your next color, you can leave a little space and you can draw that one up here. The idea is that you're stacking these one on top of the other because we're looking at overlaps. You know, if your 1.5% is like pretty much overlapping 90% of the 3%, I'm using a lot of percentages. If the majority of your graph for 1.5 is overlapping the 3, then we start to get into the question of, is there really a difference then when we dilute our substrate concentration? However, if your blue graph, if the 1.5% hydrogen peroxide is very little of an overlap with a 3%, then we start to notice that there is a big difference in the substrate concentration.